Welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Jeff Gordon here with Post-Dispatch columnist Lynn Worthy. And Lynn, the Cardinals went back on the road, and that was a tough scene in New York. Got one win in Atlanta before this taping, but the road record a concern, and really, again, bullpen inconsistency just kind of overshadowing everything else with the group right now.
Yeah, right now the road has been a tough place for the Cardinals. It's 2 wins now this so far as we sit here midweek on the road out of about 12 games, and so it's just not that's not going to carry you through a season. I mean, playing well at home is encouraging, but consistently falling short on the road is a recipe for disaster, and the bullpen it's just been rough. I think as we sit here midweek, it's like bottom 6 or 7 ERAs for bullpen in the majors. They haven't won a 1-run game. That was one of the things that they excelled at last season. And you got a couple of guys in there that have had rough starts. So it's been tough just getting the ball to Ryan Helsley.
Yeah, one of the concerns, and we've mentioned his name before, unfortunately, Ryan Fernandez was so good last year. So a tremendous get, can really spin the ball, has some swing and miss there, but not the same Fernandez you saw last year, and that creates a real void. No Kittredge. Fernandez was supposed to step up. It's so far not so much.
Yeah, last year, you got to almost a formula where it was, Jojo Romero, Kittredge, Fernandez could get you to Helsley in whichever way you needed to break that up, and then Helsley shuts it down. One of the most dominant closing seasons in Major League Baseball, record-setting performance for the franchise. This year, Kyle Leahy, has really stepped forward. I think at this point now his ERA is down under 2. His WHIP and his batting average against are both down really low. So it's looking really good. He's almost become that Fernandez as far as a guy who's stepped forward this season in a setup role. But even Romero, who last year was so dominant for them, I think at this point he might even have more walks than strikeouts that he's so far, and so it's been a rough go. They need to find some guys there, and they'll probably be dipping down into AAA to try and get some more options at some point here.
Now on the offensive side, they brought Mason Wynn back from his injury. He jumps right in after a good little rehab stint there in Memphis. Comes in swinging a good bat, but now there's decisions to make with the offense because Nolan Gorman needs run. You got Mason Wynn back. How do you get at bats for everybody? The juggling, Ollie's got to do some juggling here.
Yeah, it's that whole thing about it's a good problem to have, but as far as I'm concerned, it's still a problem because you're not going to get the guys in that you sort of promised the runway, the playing time. Thomas Saggese, people were really encouraged by the start that he's had. I think he's batting, he was batting 400 through the first little stretch here and slugging 600. So it's like, yeah, you want to keep that guy, but then you're not finding the place for him in the lineup. So it's, he's a middle infield guy. He's a guy who can move around the infield. But you've got Arenado, you've got Donovan, who right now is, dealing with a little bit of injury they think is minor. You got Gorman, who you promised to get time. You got Wynn. So Saggese's not going to get that everyday run. So it's like, well, you wanted to keep that bat here, but if you're not using the bat, then was it just sort of collecting dust on the dugout?
Yeah. Now, one thing they might have to do more of is, Brendan Donovan can play all over the place if Nolan Gorman's going to get run and Nolan Arenado is still here. You see when he's healthy again, does Brendan take some outfield shifts? Maybe take some at-bats for Jordan Walker against tough righties?
I mean, it's a possibility, but again, that goes back to the whole thing about promising guys runway. And the guys that always came up repeatedly throughout this offseason, the 3 names were Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman. So now if you've got somebody else who you feel like he needs to get playing time in there and you're going to cut into those, then it means that we're sitting here and, still at the end of April and they're already going back on what was sort of the bedrock plan this offseason.
Now, the big story for this team is trying to get through 2025 to set up 2026. So while Cardinal fans are anxious about the team's win-loss record, sort of the dual track the team is on is, besides trying to compete, is they've got to stay committed to getting these guys, finding out what they have with all these guys. It just absolutely, that's a mandate. And fans get restless, but part of what Ollie's got to do is to meet that mandate of seeing what they have with, again, Nootbaar, Gorman, Walker.
Yeah, and that's where, a guy like Saggese, who, it's a tough decision to make, but at the same time, if the long-term thing is to find out about certain guys, and the long-term best thing for him is to play every day, does it really matter that you're maybe marginally improving your bench by keeping him up here? Then, you know, maybe you grab another win out of a season that's probably destined to be 500 or below, when he could be playing every day and potentially benefiting you for the future.
You know, that's not a great motto for the team. Hey, we're getting ready for 2026, everybody. But realistically, so much of what they're doing this year is exactly that. So we'll be following that storyline all season here on STLtoday.com, the digital edition of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We'll be back with Lynn Worthy. A reminder, we appreciate all your support of local journalism. Keep following all the great coverage. See you next time.